So welcome everybody to the DeepTech Talents Nurture Our Future in Food and Agriculture session. If this is not what you were looking for, please go to any of the other rooms to your sides. For everybody else, I'm very happy to have you here on board. Thank you for joining us as we want to explore Europe's initiatives around the topic, launching and supporting DeepTech Talents, which are crucial to the transitioning of our food systems. I have with me on stage, and I want to point that out, we're an all-female panel, which is also already breaking a few cliches here. Thank you. Very nice. Also, welcome to the people who are joining us online, by the way. And I know you have not seen my name on the agenda because I'm not Martin. I'm jumping in for him today because he's actually quite sick. So this is a bit of a last-minute addition from my end. I hope we can still make it work, though, because I have a lovely panel. I have here Antonella, Laura, and Dana, and I'm not going to pronounce your last names because I'm butchering them. I will not. You can do that on your own. The session objective, and I'm sorry, I have to read some of this off because last minute. So 2023 is the European Year of Skills, and you might have heard that if you have joined the session this morning that Lucy held on the youth skills. And this session is basically to explore how we can develop DeepTech talents to nurture the future food systems, as you can also see in the title. There have been a number of initiatives that have kickstarted this year, namely the DeepTech Talent Initiative from the EIT. The commissioner also mentioned it downstairs already. So what we're going to do in this session is we're taking stock of the initiatives that are around, also knowing that the majority of the food sector is basically SMEs who are not always or only tentatively involved with deep tech and or are not necessarily innovative per se. Then we also know that there are structural issues around gender and diversity in relation to tech, which is where data comes in. And then also that the consumer acceptance of new tech is usually relatively low. So how can we change our communication around this? So in the end, the questions that we're going to be asking here, some of them were also in the paper that you saw. But what is the role of deep tech in the food system? How can we conceptualize deep tech? But also, how do we need to change structural thinking to drive deep tech uptake beyond technical skills? So what other skills will we need in the future that are not only necessarily tech skills, like ethics, critical thinking, design thinking, innovation, but also creativity. And then, and this is what the panel represents. What can we learn from deep tech in a startup? This is where Antonella comes in. How can we mobilize the other half of the workforce, which is where we have girls and women, which is where Dana comes in. But also, how can we communicate this, whereas then Laura, who will be joining us. So the rundown of the session, I'll invite the speakers right after the introduction to kind of share their experiences of why they're here. We will have a few questions on Slido. You will see them later. That will kind of lead us into the next part of the discussion. If you have questions, please keep them until the end so we don't break the flow too much. Also for the people who are online, you can put your questions on the Slido. We will take care that some of them are going to be answered, maybe not all of them. We'll check that. So I will give the floor then to Antonella, your background and why you're here. And then you will see in the background a Slido will go up. If you want to join that, it would be very nice because it will help us with the introduction and step over into the next topic. There we are. Thank you. Here. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Cornelia, for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to join this extremely interesting panel. A lot of topics are very close to my heart. A bit of introduction about myself, because I think can give you a bit of understanding about what we mean with deep tech skills. So I recently co-founded a deep tech startup, but I didn't study deep tech, so you cannot study deep tech. So it's actually talking about my background. I actually studied particle physics, did my PhD at the CERN laboratories. Then just because I was curious and interested in the research environment, I moved to computational biology, where I picked up very different skills. So still like related to data science, modeling, computation, but then also bringing in like more understanding of the biological world. Then I was also interested in more management. So I also had an experience in scientific management, still in an academic environment. And across all these years, I was always taking the opportunity to join workshops, programs where I could learn something new. And a game changer for me was the Innovator Fellowship from the EIT Food, where I started getting a more like overview of the entrepreneurship world, or how I like to call it, researchpreneurship world. And this is where I met my co-founders, and where this journey with a deep tech startup started. But yeah, it's not. I would say that we have to think about deep tech skills not as something that you teach in a normal curricula. This is not something that is like you can frame it. It's more something that you can pick up in the right environment and with the right programs. And yeah, I think this is enough for an introduction. So.
And one of you ladies, you have a mic there. Yes, please. It's on.
No, I have.
Oh, you turned it off?
Okay. All right. So my name is Dana Puya Morel. I work at the European Commission. I work in the unit responsible for SME policies. So I like what you said, that in your area, we have mostly SMEs. So we represent these voices at the level of making policy in the Commission. And I work on entrepreneurship education. So I really like what you said, Antonella, about entrepreneurship, because we see entrepreneurship as being entrepreneurial. So the skills that you talked earlier in the day, it's entrepreneurial competencies. We think everybody should have them, not only entrepreneurs themselves, like everybody, the researchers too, and everyone else. And I also work to support women entrepreneurs. So because we don't have enough in Europe, and also girls to go into those areas where we don't have enough girls. They don't study enough science, technology, mathematics, engineering, tech, deep tech. I don't know, you still have to explain to me what deep tech is. We don't even know that. But so in those areas, we don't see enough girls. And sometimes even if you see them studying in some universities, in some schools, there is equality, but afterwards when they choose a career, the numbers really drop. So I do some events, so I basically travel all over Europe. I go to capitals, and now I started to go to regions, because I realized that in those regions, those girls are less exposed to events like this on empowering women and girls. So I go and I do some workshops on entrepreneurship and digital competencies, and on building confidence. Because even if I have those skills and competencies, if I'm not confident in using them, you all know what happens. So this is what I do. So this is my portfolio at the European Commission. And I have to add one thing, that we actually had one project, one European project. I see now the flag of the union is funded by the European Union. So I also work with project. And one was in agro-industry, is to support this entrepreneurship competencies for young people, because I understand this is an area where young people are not staying. They want to go do other things. So how do we attract them? And in this case, I can tell you maybe a few things, what we do to attract the girls and the women to stay or to develop careers in those areas. And, you know, what do I do when I go in a room and I see 2 girls? I'm a girl, I see 30 men and 2 girls. What do I do in that case? So this is what I do. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you. Then the last in the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will try to juggle with the tablet and microphone.
Maybe Dana can hold the microphone for you.
No, it's okay. I will try. Yeah. We love challenges. So my name is Laura Fernandez. I'm Director General at UFIC, and what UFIC is, it's a consumer-oriented non-profit organization committed to solve or to contribute to an important societal need, which is to have more knowledgeable citizens on food and health topics. And what we do, or the way that we achieve that, is by providing information and conducting activities that increase the knowledge that people have on food technology, but also on food and health, to help them transition to healthier and more sustainable diets. And we do it by contributing at different stages of behavior change. I mean, you heard in the morning that information and knowledge are not sufficient for behavior change, but they are a first necessary step. We also increase people's food and health science literacy, and we empower them to be more critical thinkers with regards to the sources of information that they consult. We have heard a lot about the urgent need for the transformation of our food production system, production and consumption system. And it goes without saying, and we heard it also from previous speakers, that technology and innovation are crucial in order to achieve those sustainable food systems. However, and I mean, my experience and UFIC's experience is not in deep technology. Obviously, we need deep technology. We need technologies like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, etc. But I will come from the experience of communicating about food technologies to the population. And I think the lessons learned can be extrapolable to this discussion on what sort of skills do we need in order to make that transition happen. So for technology and innovation to make a difference, we must not only harness those technical skills that, for example, Antonella was mentioning, but we must be able to communicate about the technology and innovation effectively. And even if we all have the ability to speak and we talk to each other, that doesn't mean that we communicate with each other. Sometimes we just communicate at each other, to each other, or we have parallel conversations. So that is something that it's important. And the need for communication happens at different stages or at different levels of the innovation process. It is important from the very beginning when someone has an innovative idea, a potential idea, and it needs to convince others on the importance of carrying research, maybe to conduct that idea and to make it happen. We need to work on multidisciplinary teams that involve different competences. We may need agronomists, engineers, business entrepreneurs, sociologists, and they all speak different languages. And I don't know if you have experienced that, but I remember some of the EU-funded projects that we participated in at the beginning, where we had people that had nutritional background or food technology background, and there were some consumer scientists. It was the same case. They spoke different languages, and they didn't respect each other. I think right now the situation has changed and will keep on changing. But yeah, this is the issue or the type of issue that I'm talking about. Also, throughout the development cycle, we need to engage with different stakeholder groups. We have heard it in previous sessions. You need government officials, policy makers, you need farmers, you need to talk to NGOs, etc. And for that, again, communication is a must element. It's a make or break factor. We heard about the importance of communication to bridge the gap between the different stakeholders, to overcome the polarization in society, but also there is a bare or pure need of turning complex technologies into understandable terms in order to gain support and to increase the adoption and acceptance by these different communities. And finally, for technology and innovation to have an impact, they need to be accepted by the end user, the consumer, the citizen. And consumer acceptance comes with a multiple range of barriers and challenges. Let's have a look at some. On the one hand, they may lack the understanding of the technology and innovation. Maybe we don't have consumer-friendly explanations of those technologies because obviously things get more and more complex. If consumers do not fully understand the benefits and risks of those technologies, that may lead to uncertainty. It may lead to a biased perception about those technologies and innovations, and even it can lead to rejection. Many consumers also may be skeptical or fearful about the technology and innovation because it is unfamiliar or because other reasons. I mean, certainly you may know someone in your entourage that is not happy about genetically modified foods or lab-grown meat, for example. So overcoming skepticism is crucial. There are ethical and environmental considerations. We have heard also a little bit about that, and that can also generate fear and resistance. And we live with ingrained cultural and social norms about food and how food is produced. So that needs to be taken into consideration because they may be a barrier for innovative food technologies. That could be things like in some countries, culturally, we don't eat a lot of plant-based alternatives to meat, and the food culture may be revolving around meat. And that needs to be taken into consideration when we try to do that transition. We talked or heard about polarization, and lastly, there is also misinformation. We all are aware of the media headlines that tend to be sensationalized, that are and offer contradictory information, and all that creates confusion. It can create unfounded fear of food technologies, and it undermines overall trust in science and in society, and hampering the uptake of those technologies. So to bring new technologies and innovation to the table, we must navigate all these challenges, and effective communication strategies is one of the key elements that we have to educate people, engage with them, and hopefully build trust in society. So how can we do that? What are the best strategies that we have at hand? What we heard as well in one of the first panels, that understanding consumer concerns, their preferences, their needs and wants, and also preferences in terms of technology implementation is important. We need to ensure transparency in the development of and deployment of the food technologies and innovation. And this is really important in order to gain trust in society. And that includes open communication, open and honest communication about the risk and benefits of the technologies, as well as ethical considerations, because we need to show people how are we addressing those. We need to engage with consumers, but also with different stakeholders in a two-way dialogue in order to incorporate their feedback into the development and implementation of the technology. And we have to provide citizens access to robust information from credible sources that will help build the science literacy and promote trust in science. And last but not least, we have to collaborate with different actors to promote alignment in communication. Is very important because, again, if people keep listening to different messages, it will not help them create or perform a valid view. And maybe very briefly, some ingredients of effective communication is to know your audience, to know what you want to communicate and why you want to communicate it. In knowing your audiences, that addresses the understanding, the perceptions, the needs, their previous knowledge, etc., and their concerns, and addressing those. But also to craft the communications in a specific way. The how is important. We need to communicate with people more than just at people. So use dialogic ways of communicating, where we are not the teachers and people do not know nothing. They have their own knowledge. We should not consider them as stupid. They all bring something to the table and they have genuine concerns. And that it's, so we have to start from the common ground, maybe of values that we share and knowledge that we share. We must learn how to communicate to the hearts and the minds of people. The minds we do quite well, and I would say that scientists and technologists and probably deep technologists know how to do that with few clear messages, etc. But to the hearts, we need to acknowledge the power of emotions. We are emotional beings. We history of humankind have been based on storytelling. That is what makes things memorable, what makes us relate to each other, connect with each other. So we need to make science meaningful, relatable, and accessible to people to increase their engagement and empower them. We need to connect to values, and we need to focus on the benefits that the technology and innovation brings to the people, the real benefits of the technology. So with all that, my take-home messages for you are communication skills are an essential complementary skill to unlock the full potential of the technological skills that are needed, that consumer acceptance of technology and innovation is a must, because otherwise all the investment will be lost, and the collaboration paves the way forward. And to underpin my message, I'm sure that when you will think back of what you retain from this conference, I'm sure that you will remember those speakers that made a difference to you because they were good communicators. So thank you.
Well, thank you for this. I find that very interesting, especially because food is also such an emotional topic for all of us. I mean, everybody can connect to food, sometimes in different ways. I'm interested in what the Slido has brought up. The question there was, what do you think is a deep tech skill? And we've meanly done this with ChatGPT, pulled out a few buzzwords that hopefully people did. If you haven't done so, there we go. 0 on everything. Okay. I hope you've done this all. No? Nobody has yeah. Exactly. It was there all the time for like 10 minutes. I guess I communicate wrongly. So could you do this please now? It will help us a bit. Oh, it wasn't there. Oh, okay. All right. Well, then we have hopefully some live committing. So yeah, you will see there are some very cliche deep tech points there. There we go. 100% robotics engineering. Let's see what else comes up. Again, you can see we meanly pulled up a few different ones. You should be able to select more than one. I hope so. No? Well, maybe you can do it again then. Sneak in with a different name. Oh, there we go. Very nice. I like that this comes in live. It's like watching the telly. So we had selected those specific keywords also because some of them are really cliche: AI, blockchain, nanotechnology, robotics engineering. But we also brought in a few of the underpinning skills, or soft skills, or however you want to call them. We like to call them underpinning skills, like cross-disciplinary knowledge, leadership, communication. Not all of them come up here now because I think it's more on the tech side. But for me, then the second round of questions really: what kind of skills do you think we will also need in the future? Because very often the conversation around deep tech is very focused on tech, and with that maybe also kind of is addressed to the non-female side of the population, because, and I think that's where you come in, because I mean, I come from a science background, but I only went into my master's, which was a climate change master's, because the storytelling around was really good. It was attractive. Everything else, I was just like, I don't want to go into aerial dynamics and whatever it was. Some of the masters was then too techie for me, but in the end, the storytelling was interesting to me. And so for me, the question is, one, what kind of skills do you think we will need in the future? Where do we get women and girls into this? Do they have different skills? Do they look at the entire topic differently? Your floor. And before you start, we will bring up another Slido. Please do that one now. With an open question on how do you think we get more women and girls into STEM? The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'll start with what Laura said, because it helped me with the communication skills. It's how we communicate about what you saw earlier. If I tell girls, oh, if you go there, you're going to be the only girl in the room, what's going to happen? And we know now that once girls, so when you look at young little girls, if you go to a kindergarten, I've done entrepreneurial workshops there, it's all equal. They want to be engineers and scientists and what have you. And you can do the test, ask them, draw a scientist, and that scientist doesn't look that male anymore. And then you go to a little bit older girls when they hit puberty, and the confidence decreases because they started to get the cues from society. Oh, I'm a girl. The bodies are changing, and now the bodies are changing faster, maybe thanks to the food we've been eating. I don't know. So because of that, and the confidence decreases, then I start to be aware. And if I'm being told, oh, you're not good at math, and I really internalize that. So what we do in our programs, in this STEAM Fest, when we work with younger girls, we teach what we call the growth mindset. Happily, somebody in America invented that. The growth mindset is I put effort into it. Even if I'm not good at it, or somebody put this label, which we don't like, I'm not good at it, I put effort, and I want to see what's happening if I put that effort. Do I get somewhere? Do I go into? And it's the same that you tell them, oh, I see a class full of boys and there's 2 girls there. What do I do? Well, it's the same. It's a growth mindset. Maybe I'm better than them. So here is the confidence comes into. And when I ask them, what's happening in your class when you get a math test, they say, oh, actually girls do better. And girls do better because they seem to be more conscientious, or whatever it is. They're less distracted maybe. And in math tests, in science tests, they do better. But this confidence comes in. It's like, how many girl scientists, and listening to Antonella made me think that I actually have a program on role models. So I should invite you to tell them exactly this, your story. And we're coming into, so that they hear the story, because I cannot become something that I do not see. If I don't see a lot of scientists and a lot of, mathematicians, engineers that are female, I'm going to be scared. I'm not going to dare to go into that. So it's a lot on how do you communicate about this. So that's why my next project is to put this, I think it's going to be a media campaign on role models, to show these role models in this, what we call STEAM areas. So STEAM is entrepreneurship, the STEM, the classical science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and of course we added the arts because we have digital art now. We do lots of things with that. And E, of course, for entrepreneurship. And in those areas, I want to show them that are girls who made a difference, there are women who make a difference, and to actually like what they're doing. Because there's also the narratives, I'm sure you've heard it in your sector too, that's, okay, I actually don't like to go into that area because this tech, it's not human. It doesn't have people in it. It's not, and that's why, so especially in the northern countries, we see that, look, we removed the barriers, we gave girls equal opportunities, and they still do not go in those areas because they don't like them. They find them too arid, too scientific, not with people, not with nurturing aspect. So what we need to do is we need to communicate, what is human about that? Maybe deep tech can serve to help some people. Then that's a different narrative. Maybe we're serving something, we're helping. When you look at little girls, they're very good at helping, and they rally. When somebody's injured on the playground, I observe that girls come around, they want to help. What do the boys do? They're more competitive. Oh, you're injured, you're out of the game, call in the next player. So so if girls care about this different issues, then let's show them the side of deep tech that has that. So this is what we're trying a little bit to do, and it's this storytelling is very important. So when I started to work on women and girls, so my first panel ever that I had put together, there was a lady who came in and said, oh, I work in this, but I'm divorced, 2 of my kids don't live with me, and then she continued like that, and the story was a little bit intimidating and scary. And I said, well, what do girls think about this story? If they hear this story, they're probably not going to want to follow in those steps. So it's also, what do you tell them? So it comes to the, what are they communicating? What's the intention there? And the intention is to get those girls and to make them confident. And I've seen around, in some countries, they have to make a choice around the age of 13 or 14. They have to decide if they want to study more science or more of the human sciences or other things. And because their friend decided we're not good at math, we don't like that, but even if I'm good at it, but if my friends do it, then I'm not going to go into that. So there is this a little bit of a group think effects with teenagers. So there is where we want to interfere, and it's important the message that they get at home, because for instance, I went to Malta with my STEAM Fest, and I didn't know, so I had some 12-year-old girls who came to me and said, oh, we didn't know it's okay to be a scientist and be a girl. And then I said, okay, interesting. And then I realized that I was told that actually in Malta, there's still a lot of mothers who stay at home. They're stay-at-home moms. They see them as a role model. So for them, is yes, they go to school, but their ideal is to be a stay-at-home mom. Because nobody told them, yes, that's a choice, but there are other choices. So the bottom line with encouraging more girls is to offer choices and to present the choices equally. Not, these are the choices, but by the way, there are a lot of men there. You don't want to go there. Is to present these choices, to remove the barrier. You present the choices, and then they will make the choice. But it's a knowledgeable choice. It's a choice based on, I know a lot about it. It's not based on the stereotype. So we try to work against these stereotypes, and it's really hard. But I think we're making a small progress in there. So, okay.
Thank you for sharing. So what I take home from this, we've talked about girls now. But what about the rest of the workforce? I mean, you have 2 kids and you've just founded a deep tech startup. How do we get also women to cross the sector and get into this?
Well, I also want to add a little bit about this communication thing. It's incredibly important, the language that we use. And we are talking about very little kids. So I have 2 little girls. There is this amazing book. It's from the 80s. In Italian is Dalla parte delle bambine. I think it translates on the side of girls. And it really shows that it was in the 80s, but it's still the same now, how we talk differently to little boys and little girls. And we still have shops with girl clothes, boy clothes, girl toys, boy toys. It's like, if my daughter wants to play with a car, she can play with a car. If a boy wants to play with a doll, he can play with a doll. So we still have, like, we really have to address this very early, and not just for the kids. It's like us as parents also that make some choices, and dressing a girl with a beautiful dress, and then they go to the park, to the playground, and it's like, oh, please don't get dirty. This means that she cannot climb, she cannot play. And then she doesn't develop these more masculine traits of like being sporty. So this is really starts very early, and it's all about language. So communication is really key. And I also would like to mention something about the role models. So for me, like, I was good at math, I was good at scientific thinking at school, and for me it was like, I didn't really have a choice. I wanted to do something that I liked, so I went into first engineering. Then I didn't really like because it was a bit too superficial, and then I went to physics, and I just was following what was stimulating my curiosity. And now I cannot say if this is the reason, but for sure the fact that the director general of CERN was Fabiola Gianotti, a woman, I think that it had some kind of like meaning, that even so it was a male-dominated field, like most of the researchers were male, still like having a woman in command, I think it kind of made a point that, okay, I have a place here, I belong. So this belonging thing and role models is extremely important. Yeah, at the same time, I mean, it's like I would like that the discussion will not be anymore about like either one gender or the other. It's really like it's about having unbiased approach and just focus on competencies. We still might need quotas for a bit until the older generation, let's say, that gets the message. But apart from that, I think that especially now when we talk about deep tech, we have to focus on the deep word, because the tech, we all know what it is, and it was showing up also before, like machine learning, AI, blockchain, robotics. But when this tech has to go into applications, we need this deep part. And again, it's all about communicating and bringing the value to people. And this is also where I think there is a big difference between doing fundamental research in an academic background and having a startup. Because when you do like research, if you're passionate about outreach, yes, you also engage in communication and trying to explain your research to the public, which is extremely important if we think about COVID, like what kind of issues were there just because of miscommunication. But it's, it doesn't get you a professorship. So it's just extra work. So not many people are willing to engage. And some people that are not really good at communicating then might also make more damage than other, because if you approach the general public with the wrong language, then you might get completely the wrong impression. And media also don't have much with scientific understanding, let's say. So you're very well off if you just do your tech development, innovation, research without caring about the communication. If you have a startup and you don't do communication, you are dead. So you need the customers, you need the investors, you need all this part that you can only have with communication. And especially now that we see with the advent of natural language processing applications like ChatGPT, all this kind of generative AI, a lot of tech, real tech, will just be taken over by tech. So what is left that is incredibly important, and we are not going anywhere as a society without it, is this kind of emotional intelligence, critical thinking, ethics. Ethics is extremely important, and in that sense, like the European Union is kind of unique in also like trying to find a framework to regulate the ethics of AI. This is extremely important because also AI learns on the data that it has. So if the data is biased, it will propagate this bias. So very famous story. I think it was Amazon or like a big tech company. They were using AI to help in the hiring process. And at some point they found that they were hiring only males because the data on the well-performing employees were male because they only had male employees. So yeah, this is where really like all these considered soft skills become fundamental.
I have one more question to you because we've had that when we talked about this before was I think we keep forgetting the lifelong learning, which I find extremely important. I'm not that old, but I feel like I'm a tech dinosaur already because I don't know, TikTok, not my thing, might be something different. But how can we encourage people to not only keep learning, but also where do we need to get with the skills so that people engage more, have the right skills, even if they're 40, 50, to stay in the workforce and be happy in the workforce too. Happy is, I think, the wrong word, but be confident, somebody who wants to work and wants to keep going.
Yeah, this is also extremely important because if I stopped learning at the university, I would not be here. I would have just stuck with particle physics, maybe some data science, because it's just what you're doing in that area. So I think it's extremely important that when we talk about education programs, schemes, we don't focus only on young people. So there are a lot of like professionals, young and not young professionals, that need to develop new skills for the challenges that are coming. Again, like generative AI, a lot of jobs will, even if they will not disappear, they will change drastically, and people have to gain new competencies, new skills for that. So how it's about having like the right programs in place and stop having this, like I see, I don't know how many times I saw a very interesting program and you cannot apply if you're over 30, over 35. I don't apply for anything anymore, like I'm close to my 40s. So it's really, really important that of course, I mean, young people need also like, it's also a very different type of needs, of course, in terms of education. So I think it's very important that we always keep in mind that this two or even like more version of population that need to develop new skills.
Thank you. Any comment from because you're sitting so far away, any comments from your side to this topic?
I fully agree with what has been said till now, and maybe not a comment, but more a question to Antonella. How, in your startup, what is the importance that you give to communication, and how you ensure that you have the right skills in the team?
Well, I guess we are lucky that we are very complementary in our co-founder teams, and they're here. So we are covering the business side and the agroecological side that are crucial to talk with the people we will be working on. And we have been, for example, through this program of the EIT Innovator Fellowship, and there was a lot of focus also on talking, developing a user journey, understanding your customers. So this is always, every incubator you are in is all about understanding your customer. And it's not only about assumptions or hypotheses. I mean, you have to go out and talk with them. So there is this famous sentence, I hope I quote it correctly, that there are no answers in the room. So you have to go out and talk with the people. So there is always a focus on the communication and on the customer side. So even if you are a B2B and you still have to talk with a customer, even if it's another business.
I'll say something about the learning from a perspective of girls and women. So what I've noticed, so when I started this role at the Commission, I said, okay, what kind of policy do I put in place? So I started to look at studies and look at things. I say, what works? And from all the things that I've seen, and then I started to do programs myself to test them, it's the learning that stays. So mentorship, training, coaching in all this space, especially with women, because they're not confident. And this is how I got the ideas actually to get them younger to work with girls, because I started first with women and I noticed they've done amazing things, but they were not confident. And especially serial entrepreneurs, like, oh, I failed, and now what do I do? So I said, okay, how about we put them in a learning environment? It can be a workshop, it can be whatever session, a master class. And we just say, okay, confidence, digital skills, entrepreneurship competencies, what have you. But this learning space actually favors then the networking. What we say, oh, women don't have networks, or only friends and family who are going to fund their businesses. Well, actually, if you call it a networking event, they might not show up. But if you call it a learning and you offer it at a time that's convenient, then you can get them. And this is a difference. So with girls, it's schools, education. It's a little bit easier to get them because we have this setup of formal, informal education. It's set up, and we say young people, yes, they learn. It's easier. But with older people, with women, and sometimes we have men in the room too, it's you have to offer something. You have to show the benefit. And it's more like a little bit like personal development almost. So I'm going to become a different person. I'm going to grow my skills, my competencies, everything. So you have to offer those. So, and at the Commission, we have a bunch of programs on lifelong learning, this kind of learning space. And what develops us as humans. So we offer a lot of that, and we decided, at least for girls and women, to focus on that. So what I talked to you about, this is team festivals. They're actually series of workshops and lectures and coaching classes online and in the physical setup to offer both. But this is what they are. We offer these learning spaces. We bring them together, and we try to offer it at the European level, because that's our added value. At the Commission, we try to make policies and program at European level, so that we have a little bit of this cross-border effect. So, I'd like the girls from Spain and Romania to talk to the girls in Belgium and create this learning from each other. So that's what I wanted to say about learning.
And maybe to add, we are talking about skills and what can be done. And I guess that we have heard that it needs to start early. Certainly educators need to understand the importance of communication. So I would advocate, because communication is such a horizontal skill that is so important to really unlock the full potential of the vertical skills, that it should be incorporated in the curricula of the scientific careers in general, because what we are seeing, and particularly I mentioned the misinformation, that right now with the digital environment in which information is everywhere, accessible at all times from everywhere, but also that where anyone can be a source of information, so that opens the door for uncredentialed sources to be out there at the disposal of everyone, but also those uncredentialed sources can be very good communicators. They are convincing. They may have wrong knowledge and maybe wrong motivations, but they convince because they speak out of their beliefs, and that is emotional communication. They are good storytellers, etc. So for me is how can we ensure that those that have the knowledge become better communicators? And I would advocate for incorporating communication skills into all the scientific careers because of the importance that it has. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. If you could bring up the results from Slido again, I think we will see that a bunch of things that have come up are around mentorship, giving more or having more courage, role models, the encouraging of girls, confidence. Yeah, it kind of all of this goes in the role in towards the direction of role models, giving more confidence. We've talked a lot about the girls and women now, and you've started to scratch on the surface of how do we get there. A part of that skill is, as you said, communication. Are there other skills that we think we need from those that actually educate? Do we need to change there? Would give that to you.
Well, this is because you said what. So what we're trying to do, we'll try to give them entrepreneurial and digital competencies. So we have 2 European frameworks. Please look them up if you don't know them. We have the European Entrepreneurship Competence Framework. We call it EntreComp, and the European Digital Competence Framework, DComp. And it's everything that you talked about here, including communication, is there. So we try to equip them with those competencies, but how do you do it? You need to train the trainers first. So the first programs a few years ago, when this communication, it was a European Commission communication on lifelong learning with the 10 competencies. First, we had to train the trainers. So we still have programs running that are trying to train the trainers. And it's exactly what you say. If a teacher is in an older age, cannot access this training, how do you get them in the training? So what we tried to offer a lot of free training on, for instance, on EntreComp, on entrepreneurship competencies, to get the teachers so that the teachers can teach that in the classroom. And I can tell you here in Belgium, I know at least the European schools and some other schools have now an obligation to actually follow the 10 competencies, of which one is entrepreneurship, then you have digital, you have civic competence. So math, literacy, those that are the classical ones, are now complemented by these other competencies that are for lifelong learning, for being well at what I do and succeeding in what I do no matter what the career is. So my answer would be exactly in this area of learning, equip them with those competencies, do what we can to change a little bit the formal curriculum. You know, in schools, we kind of teach the skills that were needed 10 years ago, sadly. If you go to any school, if you look at the curriculum, it's like, yeah, that was very fashionable 20 years ago. But now, because we don't know what's going to come, and like you said, it is going to change fast. So we need to teach them the skills that actually are about flexibility, about problem solving. Yes, when a machine arrives and a robot is going to serve me food, what do I do? How do I adapt to that? So those competencies, so this is what we do, at least from my point of view, and I spend my life at work doing that, spreading those competencies so that actually people get them, and spreading the awareness, and then trying to go to those workshop lectures, even online. When you scroll, maybe you find something that's along that, and educate yourself, basically.
Just because you've mentioned it already, so for me it's interesting that then the communication, how do you reach the people that you want to and need to reach? I mean, again, I'm a tech dinosaur. Do you actually reach out via social media? Do you go and talk to the educators? How do you communicate the skills that we will need and the workforce that we will need? How do we get people to go there?
I'll say briefly, not to monopolize. You have to use everything that's coming up. They go on TikTok. You have to meet them on TikTok. You have to go to the classroom to see them. You know, I was in some of my campaigns, I said, okay, let's use Facebook. No, Facebook is for older people. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
This kind of, go on Twitter, go on Instagram now. It's like, okay, LinkedIn, too professional. You have to go in the spaces where you find them, because your message, and this again, your message has to be interesting for them, Otherwise, I've done some workshops and they're happy. You see them up. But I also have gone to some classes, and when they walk out, they say, this thing is boring. We're used to it. Well, if it's boring, it's not going to be internalized. It's not going to have the message that we wanted. So, and we have to keep trying, because especially when you work with teenagers, and I was like, they walk out of there and that's it. You have to keep trying. You have to be persistent.
I was just about to say, from the comms expert.
And well, certainly is segmenting. I mean, knowing your audience. Who do you want to reach, and for what? With which message, and then based on that, you will know what are the channels to reach that audience, but also what are the multipliers that talk to that audience. So work in collaboration with them. And you trigger me, but for example, for young people, influencers is super important, and you can use those that are already out there communicating. They are not all good, but they are not all bad either. So just find those that are good at what they do and have the strong knowledge, scientific knowledge, and partner with them. In our case, we do it with nano and micro influencers, because the top influencers are celebrities. So that's another, I would say...
too expensive.
Exactly, too expensive. But there are many people out there that have a decent number of followers that are good at what they do and that can reach masses. And then the role modeling. So especially, that we see it every day. Yeah? You have... sports people or celebrities that endorse different things or that pass different messages. So
Thank you. Something from you, or
there are a couple of comments that I would like to bring up. There was one about women that tend to be more perfectionist, and there are studies about it. So there is a job description, and women will not apply if they don't match 100% of it. And men will apply if they match like 20% of it. So it's like 10%. Yeah, thanks. And it comes from a man. So there is a lot of it's a mixture of confidence and also thinking that you have to be the perfect match to qualify for something. So this is for sure something that, again, I don't know if I'm just perpetrating some kind of bias because we have been trained to be perfect or whatever, but this is for sure one component. So also having this kind of I don't know, writing jobs description in a less, I don't know, strict skills description, something like that, which again, it comes because then when you do the selection of the applicants, you just won't be able to just filter them out if with this keywords thing. You wanted to...
I wanted to react to the perfectionist, because I have developed a workshop. I offer it to girls, but sometimes we have boys coming too. How not to be perfect. It's very important to teach girls, and I see some boys, they wanted to do it. It takes them 3 hours to make a drawing. It has to be perfect. And to teach them that actually, and I tell them so that they understand, is look, perfectionism is the opposite of success. If you want to succeed and be good at this, perfectionism is not the way. So I'm thinking now that I'm going to develop even more and offer this workshop all around in the STEAM Fest, because it's so important. And for girls in general, depending on culture, but in a lot of cultures, girls were told to behave, to be good girls. Well, what do I understand by a good girl? I have to be perfect. I have to dress well. I have not to speak too much. And that's kind of the visibility. Women are not good at showing their skills and competencies. Like you said, I see an ad, I think I don't have the skills, I'm not going to apply. unless I think I have 90% match or 100% match. So this perfection is something that we have to talk about it, have them become aware and say, you know what, good enough means good enough. And I see that work also with my colleagues. I say, oh, I didn't do. Well, actually, it's good enough. What does it mean, good enough? Good enough means good enough. I draw the line and I don't think, I could have done it better. No, because you can always do it better. Everything can be done better.
And the second one that I wanted to address, and also there probably Dana wants to comment, it was something about like in Iran and Myanmar there is more than 60% of graduates, women graduates in STEM. Is similar in Europe, I think, like the majority, and it's girls. So here the problem is the keeping people, and in academia you have this expression, the leaky pipeline. So the more you progress, the more you lose them. And it can be related to becoming a mother, and then not having the right schemes to keep you in the workforce, or having these toxic masculinity role models that will basically not allow you to progress just because you want a family, or you don't fit their idea of success, scientific person. So yeah.
And also, just to say on this, if we look at the entrepreneurship rate, so in countries like this is one of the few options. If you look at entrepreneurship rate in Africa, is very high. Why? Because it's the only way. In Europe is one of the lowest, because you can be an entrepreneur, but you can be a scientist, a doctor, a teacher. There are other career options. So this is kind of the effect. It's known in developed countries, because you have more options, you won't see enough women, and then you have a lot of areas. So as a result, you don't have enough women in science, in entrepreneurship. So what we say to that is we compare ourselves to other countries like America and Japan. Maybe it's not the best comparison, but why do we have more women who are in science there? Why do we have, can we do this here too? So a little bit, the narrative is not perfect, but yes, because we look all over the world, we say, what's going on? So yes, and it's good that we have those female graduates, but like you say, we have to keep them.
One more, yeah.
Maybe one more addition is that you need the diversity in the type of jobs that you can offer those, for example, mothers. There are countries in Europe. In Holland, you can have two people conducting one work. So they do it the way that they want, but both need to accomplish 100%. That is great. I mean, because maybe those that have the capacity and that are very passionate about what they do, they don't want to do it 100% of their time because they want to prioritize their family or for whatever reason. So yeah, it's given more opportunities to and flexibility.
I was just about to say that part of it is other skills, more skills, different skills, but then you kind of have to also make it possible for people to be more flexible. I think the pandemic taught us that we can actually work online. It works, not always perfectly, but we're getting there. So we're almost through the session now. We have talked all the time. Are there questions from the floor?
Or comments and
Or comments? Did we tired everybody out, I guess?
Hi, I was the one who wrote about perfectionism, and the story that I had heard was girls going into coding and this teacher going over and seeing that the girl had written nothing, but then pressing backspace and realised the girl had just deleted it because she couldn't get this one bit to work, and went, well, it doesn't work, I'll get rid of all of it. And I was a teacher before this, and I taught English. And I think the narrative is we learn from our mistakes, and maybe changing requirements in a job application to another terminology would make people feel safer to apply. Because when I read the word requirement, instantly my brain's like, I have to have this. But I can't code, speak 5 languages, do social media design and marketing all at the same time. I can learn those on the job, but I can't know them yet because that's not an entry level. That's just someone who's worked in the field for 5 years. So do you think jobs are going to move towards that, maybe changing terminology? Do you think we could try and get that to happen slowly? But yeah.
Who wants to answer that one?
I can give it a shot. What I see nowadays is that, and this is what I teach a little bit in my workshops, jobs are not like, even my job, I'm not only a policy maker. I have other roles. I am a mentor. I am an internal facilitator. I'm a coach. I have roles. So the jobs of the future are going to be a bunch of roles, titles, work put together. And even in a startup, you don't do only, I'm developing this product. There are other things. I might have to do communication because there's nobody else. So these are how the jobs are going to look like. And we have to be flexible. And I see that the big institutions, the big organizations are less flexible, and academia is a little bit less flexible, because if that's a future, it has to be in the classroom too. When I learn, maybe I don't learn well when I sit here a whole day and I look at a blackboard or a screen in front of me, because I actually have pieces in different areas. So it's that. And yes, it happened to me also. I went to a job interview many years ago, and I was asked some question, and I realized, look, if I knew the answers, it means I would have worked here for 5 years. So no, I don't know the answers. I know other things, but this, I don't know. But you feel confident how you answer. And for instance, when you pass this concours to enter the commission, at the interview, they ask you a question until you get to a point where you cannot answer. Because why? They want to see how you answer when you don't know. Do you become red? Do you become panicky? What happens when I don't know? When I fail? And this is one thing we also say in relation to entrepreneurship and in relation to education. You have to teach kids to fail. You cannot tell your kids have A's. Straight A's is not good. If I see a kid with straight A, is not good. Why? Because the moment when the kid fails, it's going to be a big drama. And I've seen these things. Kids going into depression because after 5 years, they got a B. B is good, or whatever. You have to fail, because this is how human learns. They learn from failing. It will stay with you. What have I done wrong? And I think about it. That will stay. That learning will stay. And we have to talk about failure and mistakes. And because you're human, we kind of done a good job or not so good job hiding this, creating a system where you have to be top of your class. And then what happens? At some point, you won't be top of the class anymore, because that's how life is. So to teach those, to be open about that, to be, I know some of the kids I work with, I have some kids I follow a little bit, and they go around saying, oh, C is a very good grade. And I say, okay, well, maybe that's what they got from what I told them. But I prefer they spread that message than, oh, you have to be everything top of the top. Because that's where the perfectionist comes in.
Yeah, and maybe changing education altogether, because I think we are propagating a system that is not working. I can tell you an experience that I lived through my kids. There was a mathematical equation. They had to sum up flowers. So they had 1 flower plus 2 flowers. And one of the kids of the class drew a jar with the flowers, with the correct number of flowers. It was considered wrong, because it needed to design it in the same way that it was. For me, that is completely wrong. You need to foster the creativity that the kids have, because they have it. We kill it. But so it's more encouraging that lateral thinking, that possibilistic approaches. I remember, I don't know if you know the series, Brothers and Sisters. I remember the mother. She was a mother of 8, and she applies for a job interview. She has never worked in her life, and she pulled on the experience that she had in organizing events for all the big family that she had, and really she really put in value all the skills, and I think it's that mentality that we need to instigate and instill in people.
There was a question here, yes. Mike is coming.
Hi, and thank you all very much. This is very inspiring. I just wanted to challenge or maybe add an element to this example about the job ad, because we now know that for any job ad, men will apply if they have 10% of the skills required, and women only if they have the 100%. But me as a man, in this kind of example, I think that the very toxic part of this funnel is the fact that men apply if they have the 20% of the skills. So I agree with you completely. Perfection is the enemy of good or good enough. We need to teach girls to be satisfied with being good enough. That is important. Confidence is important. But I don't think that we need to push girls to become like men. Because, if there are, some job requirements in a job ad, then the point is that if men apply when they only have the 20% of the skills required, and we sort of let the message pass that is good, then it means that we are teaching assertiveness, we're teaching the value of assertiveness, or maybe blah-blahing your way through, rather than actually, promoting competence and skills building for real. So this is just to say that I think we've been talking about girls and women, and this is very important, but there is also something to teach to the boys, and to also maybe tell the boys that they should take inspirations from the girls, and maybe learn, do their homework and study and really build competences before actually maybe taking or daring to actually take a step that sometimes is as long as your leg. Sometimes it's a bit longer, but you can take a shot, and sometimes it's simply too big, and therefore you shouldn't be taking it.
I agree partially, in the sense that it's very true what you say. I just want to add that we also need to nurture this failing is okay culture, because at least this is my personal case. I only know if I like something, if I am good at something, if I try. And in that sense, maybe I'm more similar to a man. So if I see a position that is I like it, and I feel like, okay, I don't match it now, but maybe I can learn it. Okay, maybe I don't apply. Maybe I try to contact the person and see okay, this is my background. What do you think? And this is also how I moved from research in particle physics to research in biology. If I thought, okay, I can only do that after I graduate from another university master in biology, then I will never do that. I just did that, and it's also about the people that you meet, if they value this kind of approach, this kind of how do you say initiative. So I think that yes, when it comes to initiative, we should encourage women, but then again, now we're talking about women, but it's a more general topic about diversity and underrepresented minorities. So it's not only women. So it's really this thing, failing is not bad, because you cannot fail if you don't try. So this kind of approach, I think it's healthy. Then again, okay, maybe 10% is a bit too low. Maybe let's bring it to 50%. Okay, but then also there is a job to be done in writing better job ads, for sure.
But it's also, the distance between 100% to 20% is so big that I don't think we have the risk in the next 100 years that the girls would become like boys. I don't think there is a risk. On the other hand, and I get this question often, because I take the girls out. I tried both. I tried to do events for girls with girls and boys, and only with girls. And when the boys are there, it's no longer a safe space, because the boys don't understand. So now I take the girls out, but guess what? The teachers are asking me, and what do we do with the boys? So now we have put exactly what do we do with them? And yeah, they cannot have the normal class because the girls are not there. So they cannot have the normal class. So what we do now, we offer them a program where we teach boys what do we do this for girls? What does it mean? We show them role models from last century. So we tell them, what is the issue with the girls? Because especially younger boys, they don't understand what's the issue. Why do we focus on girls all of a sudden? So we teach them, then they say, look, you need to work with girls, you need to empower, you need to support. If you see that, if you're in a science class, if you see that all the girls are on the side taking notes, then maybe you need to do something, or this kind of, so you need to include the boys, you need to find a way to include the boys, and this is the most difficult when you organize programs for girls and women. You need to include because you don't want to continue the segregation, but it's difficult, and it's difficult because you don't have budgets, and logistically, it's one thing if I have 100 girls, it's another thing if I have 200 boys and girls. But I've tried it, and because I wanted to see the dynamic, when the boys are then, and I give them the same exercise, what happens? Well, it's a different exercise. The dynamic is different because the girls assume some roles. And also there are even some members of the European Parliament that brought to our attention that in girls-only schools, you have a lot of girls studying science and mathematics. And what do? Do you go back to all-girls schools because we know we'll get them more into these areas? Of course not, because they lose on other areas. What we were talking, they lose on the other skills, But that's a lot of questions for reflection. But I think it's important that we talk about these things. I think, and it's like it is for boys, that we talk about these issues openly, and maybe they can come up with a solution. Sometimes I ask them, what would you do? What's your solution to open this creativity? Because the new generations are more creative than we are, so maybe they'll find a solution.
Thank you very much. I found the discussion extremely interesting. We moved a little bit away from the deep tech of the talents, but I think we dug deeper into a general, how do we get our talents, future-proof, basically. We had a whole other discussion in our prep talk about how do we adapt language. How do we make sure that people understand deep tech, not only on the, kids and women and girls, but also the consumers? And I'm afraid we don't have time anymore for this. But before we all hike our butts out and go to the coffee break, I would like to have a takeaway from each of you, a sentence on what you think is going to be important in the next few years to get the deep tech talents and nurture them. Not only the younger generation, but also the older generation. I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I'm here. So for me, the key takeaway is really this continuous education and lifelong learning. So and this is genderless. So it's really like, it comes very much together also like with self-initiative. So you cannot expect like in school. In school, you are basically fed a program. When you are a young adult, you have to find your opportunities. So we can make it a bit more like accessible through the right channels, but maybe with support from peers or we need this kind of continuous learning.
So very briefly, communication skills. So really consider that a horizontal skill that needs to be added to the vertical ones.
For me, is encourage learning, boys, girls, whatever, but encourage this learning, and it's what you said, and a little bit like, I will call it personal development, because I want to discover who I am, boy or girl. I want to know first who I am, and then what competencies, what strength I have, what values. So encourage that more and more in school, outside of school, wherever is possible.
I think I'm closing this session with a quote from the commissioner that you just said this afternoon, well, midday, which is basically we need to invest in people. And I think that's very true from this panel. Thank you very much. Before you all go out, there's a coffee break until 5, I think. Don't get me wrong. Please look at you have your agenda on the back of your 5. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you very much. Thank you for the panel.